Good to see everybody on here virtually again. Really excited to be getting started here. I can't tell you what a great feeling it is to look out my window and there's a practice field with football players on it. That's been a long time coming. So very excited to kick this training camp off. I'd be remiss if I don't mention the work that's gone on in this building behind the scenes has been so impressive to me. And really to make sure that it's a safe return for the players and the coaches. And Joe Sheehan, our staff at UH, our facilities crew, our video crew, our equipment staff, it's just been so impressive with what they've been able to do to this building. Where I'm talking to you all right now is from what we're calling our broadcast room. And this is the old quarterback meeting room down on the first floor. So speaking of retrofitting rooms in this building, what we've done is set up a camera in here that's on a tripod that I have wherever it is. I have a little button that I can move the camera. And I'm in here by myself, so I don't have the mask on. But so somewhere where I can come down here and have a team meeting. Alex Van Pelt can come down here and do the offensive install. We have another room for the defense, for Joe Woods and for Coach Briefer. So just the work that has gone into this has been nothing short of, a miracle. I've been so impressed with how they've worked. And as coaches, we just get to show up and here we are. We don't have to put in all that work. So really appreciative of that. And then as we get started, just we're ready to go. And we have the protocols. They're in place. We understand that it's this whole, as we get going day in and day out, we may have to pivot. But I do believe firmly that we have a plan in place. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Coach. We're going to go to Tom Withers for our first question.
Hey, Coach. Good to see you. Hey, this is with this pandemic and all, when it hits home, it really, it means a little bit more. So in a situation where like Eric Sugarman comes down with COVID and then you have several players that have had to go on the list, has it become a little more real, Kevin, when those kinds of things happen?
Yeah, I think so, Tom. I think all of us have probably been affected in some way or another. And you mentioned Eric Sugarman. I spoke to him yesterday, wishing him and his family a full recovery. But it's certainly something that we're all dealing with, and I think that's true of everybody in every state. This is something that is impacting everyone, and certainly there's a personal level when it's someone that you know and love.
Right, and we're all considering risks, whether we're going back to work or what have you. Have any of your coaches decided to opt out? Have you had any of those conversations with staff?
No, we haven't had. I haven't had anybody opt out and haven't had those conversations.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Tom. Our next question is to Mary Kay Cabot.
Hey, Coach, I'm just wondering, there are some coaches in the NFL that have thought about possibly quarantining their quarterbacks just to make sure that you have a quarterback for opening day. Do you have any plans to do anything like that?
I think we are mindful of that, and I've read that. I've talked to some people. We're going to put a plan in place that we feel really confident in keeping all of our players safe. Obviously, I understand the quarterback position and why people are discussing that, but I feel very strongly that the protocols that they've given us, we've adhered them to a T. And the truth is, we've gone past it. We're doing some things in an abundance of caution that we don't even have to do. So, for example, we're going to split the squad next week, and we're going to go with a call it a brown and an orange team. And we're going to have a workout in the morning and a workout in the afternoon. And we're going to do that just to limit the people in the building. We're not going to have in-person meetings until I think August 9th. We're going to just stay virtual. So there's a bunch of things that we're doing past the protocols just because the first 7 to 10 days or 2 weeks are so critical to this per the medical experts, that we really want to do everything in our power to make this as safe an environment for our players.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mary Kay. Jake Trotter.
Yeah, Kevin, kind of along those lines, do you have to be mindful about once you have everybody, coming into the facility more regularly beginning August 9th, your quarterbacks being in the same room together or when they're on the field, keeping them as far apart as possible because if there is something that happens, you would like to have at least one of those guys for a game or even for practice. I'm sure it would be very difficult to get through practice if you didn't have, your quarterbacks.
Yes, definitely. And for the meeting rooms, for instance, I mean, the quarterbacks in particular are spread out way more than 6 feet. But every position we've done that. I don't want to. I know I don't really want to single those guys out, which I know we all do. But every position we're taking this very seriously in terms of adhering to the protocol and then going beyond it. But certainly those meeting rooms, we have 4 quarterbacks on our roster. The meeting room that they're in could fit way more than 4 players.
And then you guys had to take your weight room and make it a second locker room, which means you've had to take your indoor facility and make it a weight room. So it gets cold here in Cleveland. It rains a lot. What do you do when you need to practice inside, starting with training camp and then through the season?
Yeah, so Jake, we're an outdoor football team, so we're going to be outdoors as long as we possibly can. To your point, we'll go inside if it's absolutely impossible for us to be outside with the weather. If we go inside, it's a limited field prior to us putting the weight room in there, and now I understand we've cut it down even more. So we'll be smart if we go in there. I don't know that you can have an individual period, but there are some things that you can do full speed in there. But I'm not in a rush to get in there, being the fact that we have all of our games playing outside. We're going to stay outside for as long as we possibly can.
Scott Petrick, you're up.
Hey, Coach. I know we had a couple of opt-outs yesterday. Do you expect more players to opt out?
I don't know. I can't. I wouldn't speculate, but I respect the decisions.
And how, is there a plan in place to replace some of the guys if that happens organizationally?
Sure. I think, we've talked a lot about contingency plans for everybody at every position, players, coaches, front office. We have a contingency plan for all of us.
Thank you, Scott. Daryl Ryder. Go ahead, Daryl.
Hey, Coach. I'm curious with the new training camp schedule. First and foremost, do you feel like you're going to have enough time to really ramp up this team and make up for all that lost off-season practice time? And I got to follow up when you're done with that one.
Sure, I do. I think we have 44 days until the opener on September 13th. I think there's 6 off days of those 44. So we have to make every day count, even those off days. The guys got to make sure that they're serious about their recovery. So we'll be efficient. I think we have a really strong plan in terms of how we're going to ramp it up. Obviously, the NFL gave us a very strict guideline on how to do that. But even within those guidelines, I think we have a really strong plan in making sure that we safely acclimate these players and then continue to teach these systems. I go back to our off-season program. I was really impressed with the amount of work we were able to get done back in the spring. So that's something where I feel like we've built a foundation, and now we get to build upon that foundation here at training camp.
No preseason games. Could you touch on the impact that has in your preparation? And then the second part of that is you were originally planning to use that to kind of figure out whether it was going to be you or Alex to call plays. And I'm just curious now, what is your plan for determining that now?
Yeah, the second part first. We do have a plan. I'll announce that when the time's appropriate, but that's certainly something, like with everything else, you got to have a plan for all of this. And then just missing the preseason games, sure, it's an opportunity for players. It's an opportunity for our fans to get in the building and see these players. So it's definitely unique. I think it's our job to create as many moments in training camp, as many times we can at practice to mimic game-like settings, put the players in some situational football so that we don't lose those 4 games like you mentioned.
Thanks, Daryl. We'll go to Nate Ulrich. Nate, if you can unmute on your side.
Hey, Coach. Good to see you. Piggybacking off Daryl's question about no preseason, I was curious about, has that changed your plan for Jedrick Wills at all? Because we all know that reps are valuable and he's making a transition, over to the left side. Has the plan changed with him at all?
I don't know that the plan has changed with him other than you don't get those 4 opportunities to teach and get reps. So, no, the plan hasn't changed. We're keenly aware that we have a young player over there at left tackle. And trust me, his development is something that we'll be very much on top of. And then we just got to work, like I mentioned earlier, we have to make sure every one of these days counts, every one of these periods, every one of these lifting sessions, got to make them all count because, it is a shorter runway, but it doesn't mean that if we're not about our business, I think we can really get to where we need to get to, just like you would in a normal training camp.
Thank you. We'll go to Zach Jackson for our next question.
Hi, Coach. Nate mentioned Wills, but the other guys, the late round picks and drafted rookies, they're working from behind. So do you do anything specifically to try to help them catch up, or is this just the situation and you have to see how it goes with those guys?
Yeah, I think it's important for us. All those guys are here for a reason. So we want to evaluate them. We want to see them. And there are definitely opportunities for us to be really efficiency is probably the best word. So if it's a 60-minute practice or a 90-minute practice, we got to make sure that we give those guys enough opportunities within the framework of the rules. So maybe at times you may split fields. If you have extra 15 minutes at the end of practice, you may have a period for the young guys to continue to show what they can do. But you're trying to get your starters ready, you're trying to get your backups ready, you're trying to evaluate the young players, and you really have to do all of those at the same time.
All right, Tony Grossi, you have our next question.
Okay, well, about 5 of them have been asked since I raised my hand, so I'll go to number 6. Kevin, the split squad, I take it you're keeping 90 players, and what went into that? And what exactly are the workouts right now? I thought you guys were in strength and conditioning mode.
Yeah, I'll let AB kind of speak to the roster as it gets going, but the split squad idea is just trying to be an abundance of caution. Right now, the rookies and the quarterbacks are in phase 1, as it's called. And so right now they're strength and conditioning, and we got a 1-hour walkthrough with them. So that's going to come up here at 4:30. And then it's on the 3rd, I believe, when the rest of the vets they report into phase 1. Phase 1, again, very similar to phase 1 in the spring, just the difference being we get a 60-minute walkthrough. And I can tell you, we don't need any. We'll use the meeting time, but we need time on the grass with the players. So really looking forward to getting out there and being around the players at 4:30 today.
All right, our next question is from Dan Lobby.
Hey, Coach. With all the precautions you've taken at the facility, have you or are you planning to address your team as far as your expectations away from the facility, and what's kind of your message as far as what you expect from them to kind of keep things safe and not bring the virus into the building?
Yeah, it's something we talked. Our first team meeting was Tuesday night. Talked a lot about it, and to me, it's a shared responsibility, and it's something that it's not just one person's responsibility to stay on top of. So really going to be counting on our veterans to show some good leadership here, and it's a unique time, and I know there's a work-life balance for our players, and I completely understand that, but this is such a unique time, and they have to take care of their teammates. And we talk so much about being a good teammate, and one of the ways you can be a good teammate is when you leave this bubble and go into your own bubble, just making sure that you're making really sound decisions, and ultimately you're taking care of your teammates when you do that, your teammates and your coaches.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, Dan. Jeff Shadell, you have our next question. If you can unmute on your side, please.
Hey, Kevin. So my question is, have you met all your players yet? And if so, how did that happen since the veterans aren't in the building yet?
No, I haven't met all the players yet. I've met them virtually, a lot of them. And then I'll tell you, just with having the rookies and the quarterbacks and the injured players in the building, when you're wearing these masks, you got to look pretty closely because it's hard to tell sometimes when you haven't met somebody who it is. So that's a unique thing that's going on right now, but I am really looking forward to going out in the practice field and seeing our players out there. It's those fields look really, really good, and they're meant to have players on them. So it's nice that we can finally get the rookies and the quarterbacks and the injured players out there today, and then looking forward to getting the vets out there on the 3rd.
As a follow-up, how much time have you spent thinking of your first face-to-face message with all your guys?
Yeah, I think Jeff, we've done so much virtually, and have covered so much ground already. Having that first training camp meeting virtually from right here to the players on Tuesday night feels like old hat. It's what we've been doing since the spring. So very much looking forward to doing this live in person. But I feel like the guys understand, even when we do it this way, there's a lot of ground to cover. And I can tell you, we were on calls today, some of the NFL mandated calls that occur during training camp, and guys are engaged, they're taking notes, they're asking really good questions, having incredible discussions. So we're getting pretty good at this virtual, but I am looking forward to getting the guys in person.
Great. Our next question is from Aditi Kinkabwala. Aditi, if you could unmute on your side.
Hi. No cameras this time. So you mentioned there's a plan for everybody, a contingency plan. What is the contingency plan for you? Who is the contingency plan for you?
I'm not going to share it, Aditi, but I'll tell you, it doesn't just go down one, it goes down multiple. Just because the worst thing you could do is not have a plan in a year like this. So for every single position, and it's not just the coaching staff, we've really done this throughout our football operation. We've made sure, who's the next man up, right? Next person up. So we have that laid out. We've talked about what your roles, what your duties, what your responsibilities are day to day, because the bottom line is we have to be prepared. The worst thing you could do in a situation like this is not be prepared and start to have those conversations in the moment. So we really made sure we had those conversations in the last few weeks.
And we'll go back to Tony Grossi.
Okay, let's go on to Jarvis Landry. Physically, is he able to do what others will be able to do right now?
Yeah, our physicals for the vets are Saturday and Sunday of this week, so I'll have a better answer for you after that, but he remains on schedule based on everything he's done post-surgery.
All right, Mary Kay, you're up.
Hey, Coach, I'm just wondering, have you actually, when you're looking out that window, have you been able to see Baker Mayfield, from a physical standpoint, or maybe you've even been able to see him, closer than from looking out a window? But have you seen him in person somehow? How does he look physically? Because, what we see on social media is that he's really been working his tail off. And if so, how does he look? Have you seen him throw? How does the footwork look and all of that?
Well, I should mention, first of all, that when I look out the window, I saw the players out there getting ready to do their conditioning. And then I went back and sat down because I'm not allowed to watch them condition. Okay, that's just the strength staff. So I just wanted to get the image. I wanted to see what that looked like, to see the Cleveland Browns on our practice field. So I haven't seen the guys yet physically do anything until the 4:30 walkthrough, which, if you can imagine, it's a walkthrough. It's not going to be. It's hard to do a walkthrough. As you can imagine, all the coaches are wearing their masks, all the players are wearing their masks. So the walkthroughs will really be more of a meeting on the field as we start to get going and go really nice, have a real slow ramp up to this. We don't want to be doing too much too soon. I haven't seen Baker yet. He's in the building. I think he's probably getting ready for the walkthrough. So I will see him and report back to you on how he looks.
And then the other thing real quick is the last time we talked to you, you admitted that you were really pondering how you were going to divvy up the pie to all these different guys. So since the time we saw you last, do you have any more clarity on how that's going to happen?
Not really, Mary Kay. I think those things, we got to see our guys practice. We have to understand our strengths and weaknesses, and we're going to reinstall our scheme. We're going to go back to the beginning. It's just how you do it. How I know how to do it in terms of how you install an offense. So there's a lot of mileposts that we got to get to before we get out there to practice. And then we see what we feel like our receivers, our running backs, our tight ends. And then it's really, once you get into the game, once you get into game planning, you just have to be mindful of that. And that's really no different than any staff that I've been on. You got to be mindful as you put a plan together and make sure you're thinking about players instead of plays.
Thanks.
Great. We'll go back to Daryl Ryder. Daryl?
Coach, I'm just kind of curious too. Have you watched what the other sports have done, the NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, et cetera, as far as, and I know they're in bubbles, you're not, but seeing what they've done and how they've done it, does that give you any more confidence that this season is going to actually be able to proceed safely, number one, and then number two, even to a positive conclusion?
Yeah, Daryl, I mean, I'm optimistic. I believe in this bubble. You know, you may say we're not in a bubble. I feel like I'm in a bubble. Wearing a mask everywhere, staying away from everybody. I mean, here's my Connect sign, which blinks red when I'm within 6 feet of people. So it certainly feels that way. And then we just got to make sure with that shared responsibility as you leave this bubble that you maintain and follow the protocols. And so I feel very confident in the plan that was put together jointly with the NFL and the NFLPA. And then it's just a matter of us adhering to the protocols.
Thanks, Daryl. Tom Withers, you're up.
Coach, how normal is practice going to look?
Good question, Tom. I think once we start practicing, which is about the middle of August, I think practice will look very similar to how you know it. Prior to that, walkthroughs, we've discussed early in these walkthroughs, we're not going to huddle. And that's something that is the antithesis of an offensive coach. That first meeting you have is about the huddle and having a tight huddle and breaking the huddle. And we're going to make sure we spread everybody out. And again, it just goes back to early on in this thing, we want to have an abundance of caution to make sure we're keeping our players and staff safe.
All right, Scott Pedrick, you're up. Sorry, Scott, if you could go ahead and unmute on your side. A little technical error there.
I was going to ask what Tom did. So do you still plan to huddle like once the actual practices get going and have the same amount of contact?
Yes, I should say there will be some things that we address and are ready to pivot. I just know this, we are still, even though the opener is 44 days away and you can feel that you want to go real fast, I've told the players this, I've told the coaches this, we will not do too much too fast. It's just not in anyone's best interest. So there are small concessions that we have to make that put us out of our comfort zone to make sure that we're staying safe, and especially early on in this thing. And that's just on the advice of the medical experts.
And personally, I mean, like Daryl said, you guys aren't in a bubble per se when you leave the building. Like, do you have to talk to your family or have the coaches and players talk to their families about how they need to be responsible just because, how we don't know how the virus gets transmitted or how easily it gets transmitted?
We do, yeah. And it's something all of us are living with and something that we all have to make good choices, make good decisions. There's, and I've talked a lot with the players about it already, and you just have to do everything in your power to keep yourself and your teammates and their families safe. And it's just, and so that's hard. That's not easy for a lot of families, mine included, but you just have to do it. It's the sacrifice that we're making to make sure that we're keeping everyone else safe.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll go to Jake Trotter.
Yeah, Kevin, that phrase you've used, shared responsibility, how much of
Lost you, Jake.
All right. Can you hear me again now?
Yes.
Yeah, that phrase shared responsibility, how much of that is going to directly impact winning and losing this season as it relates to the virus, keeping guys healthy, keeping guys in the building and on the field? Is that going to, be the difference in a team maybe making the playoffs and not? How important is that going to be to the win-loss records in the NFL this year?
It's a good question. Remains to be seen. It's hard to win in this league, as we all know. I mean, it's hard to win, and we're going to do everything in our power not to make it harder. So certainly if we take care of business in the building, outside of the building, seemingly that should give you an advantage.
Excellent. Nate Ulrich.
Kevin, this is uncharted territory for me, so I'm going to try and see what you can say. But with Jamie Gillen going on the COVID-19 list, do you get an initial kind of idea from James Voos or Joe Sheehan about how long he might be out? Because all these protocols and procedures are, asymptomatic versus symptomatic, and obviously it's going to be case by case, but it seems like there's a lot there. So do you have any feel for Jamie off the bat, and do you have to sign another punter?
I do. It's something, obviously, I do have a feel for it. I do obviously have a lot of dialogue with our team docs, with Joe, with all of this, and this is just going to be the new normal. We really can't comment on individuals in this regard, but it's certainly something that, that I think the league expected, that there would be guys that get put on this list, and then the only thing we will do is follow every protocol to the T.
Okay, and one more COVID thing with Drew Forbes opting out. How does that affect your outlook at right guard and that competition?
Yeah, I think it's like a lot of things, Nate. I mean, there should be competition at a bunch of different positions. That's the fun part of training camp, and I think our guys are eager to compete. So Drew made a decision. I respect his decision, and then it's the next man up mentality, and we'll see how it all shakes out.
All right, Tony Grossi, you're up.
Okay, Kevin, I hope you could answer this. It's kind of hypothetical, but I was really looking forward to see what your philosophy was in preseason games, playing time and such. Would you have played, or are you one of those guys that wants to keep guys out, or would you have played starters just because you guys need a lot of time together?
You're going to have to wait till next year, Tony.
I knew that was coming. All right, fair enough.
Okay, next up is Scott Petrick.
Hey, Coach, have you talked to David Njoku since he requested the trade?
I have not talked to him, no.
And how are you guys as a organization proceeding with having a guy around who has said he doesn't want to be there?
Yeah, I mean, my stance hasn't changed. The organization stance hasn't changed in that we believe in David. I'm excited to work with him. I'll get to finally be in the same room as him, this weekend. He's coming in for physicals, and then get out in the field with him on Monday, but excited to work with him.
Thanks.
Mary Kay, back to you.
Coach, do you think that even since the new practice rules came out, where you found out about the whole long ramp up period and all that kind of stuff, do you think that you will have to simplify your schemes and your game plans and sort of pare things down a little bit so that you guys can really be ready to roll?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we have to be mindful. You don't want to, like I mentioned before, I definitely don't want to do too much too soon. But there is a certain amount of install that you have to get through. So we're very, very intentional about how we put our plan together. And we want to make sure that come September 13th, we're in a position to put together a game plan to give the guys an opportunity to go play fast. So that's something that we have to be mindful from practice one all the way through our preparations for Baltimore. So that's something that myself, AVP, Joe, Coach Prefer, we've all constantly been talking about, and we'll pivot and adapt after we get through a week. We'll kind of take a temperature, see where everybody is, and we can adjust that as we go.
Thank
All
you.
right, we'll take these last two questions from Nate Ulrich and Tom Withers, and we got to get Coach going. So Nate, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you if your attendance has been 100% since the reporting dates for everybody.
Yes.
Nice and simple. We'll go to Tom Withers to end it out.
Kevin, I think it goes without saying that you're never going to forget your first NFL training camp. During this whole time, we're all kind of looking for silver linings. What are yours?
I think this is fun. We got the email from the league at 11:30 Friday night outlining what training camp was going to look like, and then you pour over it, and then you get in a room with a bunch of smart people. You spread out, by the way, in that room. And you put your mask on, and we grinded on this thing, and I feel like we put together a good plan. So it's a challenge, no doubt, something that is very unique, but there's opportunity here. And I think it's our team, our organization is certainly positioning itself so that we can get out there, get our players in a safe environment, get our coaches here safely, and get to work.